In a dazzling grand hall filled with whispers of wealth and privilege, Charlotte feels like a trapped bird in a gilded cage, yearning for authenticity beyond designer gowns and societal expectations. As her heart races with a thrilling yet terrifying longing for true love, she wonders, what sacrifices will she make to shatter the illusions that bind her? A hidden truth about her life is waiting to be uncovered, one that could change everything. Join her on this unforgettable journey of love and rebellion. Hit subscribe to witness the spark of romance that dares to challenge it all. In the quiet confines of her lavishly adorned bedroom, Charlotte sat on the edge of her plush velvet bed, her gaze riveted to the flickering flame of the candle beside her. The shadows danced across the walls, mirroring the turmoil within her heart. She felt suffocated, drowning under the weight of her family's expectations. The opulence that surrounded her, a constant reminder of the elite world in which she had been raised, now felt like gilded bars trapping her in a life not of her own choosing. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, a chilling proclamation uttered during a lavish dinner. A union with Lord Harrington is not merely a marriage, it's a merging of power and legacy. Charlotte shivered at the sound of the name, her once eager at the sound of the name, her once eager anticipation replaced by dread. Lord Harrington was a man of influence, rich and powerful, but cold as ice. Love was nowhere in the agreement her family had crafted. It was a deal, a transaction, one that would strip away her dreams of genuine connection. As she looked through the window, the moon cast a silvery glow over the sprawling garden, where the scent of jasmine wafted through the air. It was there, amid the fragrant blooms, that Charlotte had found a glimmer of hope in Daniel. Their secret meetings fueled a yearning she hadn't known she possessed, a longing for authenticity that clashed violently with the world she inhabited. Every stolen moment with Daniel felt perilous yet exhilarating. The laughter they shared and the conversations that stretched late into the night, acting as a sanctuary from the suffocating demands of her family. They bonded over deep frustrations with societal norms, trading wistful dreams about a life unbound by privilege. In Daniel, she saw a reflection of her own unvoiced desires, a mirror that revealed a self that had remained hidden beneath layers of silk and satin. "Have you ever wondered if there is more out there?" Daniel had asked one evening, his voice low and inviting, as they sat beneath the stars. "More than the expectations that dictate your choices? More than living someone else's dream?" Charlotte had felt her pulse quicken, a thrilling mix of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. It was a challenge to everything she had been taught, yet it felt undeniably right. But shame unnerved her, creeping in like a dark fog. How could she reconcile these newfound feelings with the ties of duty that bound her? The knowledge that her family's plans for her continued to dangle above her like a guillotine, waiting to sever any thread of happiness she might weave with Daniel, was a heavy burden on her heart. Just when she thought they could navigate their relationship in secrecy, a dread realization washed over her. She had fallen for him, heart and soul. Yet his presence was a ticking time bomb, and each encounter felt laced with impending doom. How long could they keep the facade intact? The thrill of love danced dangerously close to the edge of annihilation by the very world she was born into. As the realization settled in, she sensed a shift in the air. A specific tension tightened around her, reaching towards her very core and expanding into a haunting question. What if her feelings for Daniel, her desire for authenticity, were discovered? The prospect sent chills racing down her spine. The embers of conflict ignited within her, blazing against the backdrop of societal expectations. What price would she pay for her longing? Could she brave the storm ahead, even if it meant risking everything she had ever known? With a shaky breath, Charlotte clasped her hands tightly, palms sweating against each other. She was at the precipice of a choice that could unravel her carefully woven life. And just as she steeled herself for the risks to come, a sudden noise broke the fragile spell. Her parents were engaged in a heated argument, their voices rising in the hallway. Charlotte's heart raced. Could it be that they have discovered my secret? The unsettling thought lingered. Would they understand her yearning for love? Or would it only seal her fate further? Thus, the stage was set. Her heart tore between the unwavering chains of obligation and the sweet allure of love. Little did she know, a storm was brewing. one that threatened to expose her romance with Daniel, tossing her between two worlds that were destined to collide. What secrets lay between Charlotte and Daniel that could either unite or tear them apart entirely? With each heartbeat, tensions escalated, leading to that fateful moment when truths would have to be unveiled. Keep watching to discover how far Charlotte will go in the quest for her own truth. The lavish dining room was a spectacle of excess, adorned with glistening silverware and crystal goblets that refracted the candlelight into shimmering rainbows across the walls. Charlotte sat at the head of the grand table, her heart racing as she twirled her fork absently through her untouched meal. The clinking of glass and the chatter of her family echoed around her, yet an immense weight pressed down on her chest, pulling her thoughts to the memories of stolen moments shared with Daniel. This evening was supposed to be nothing more than another obligatory family dinner, yet as laughter rang out, the ambience shifted. An unspoken tension hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Charlotte's eyes darted nervously toward the door, half expecting Daniel to walk through at any moment. The thrill of their connection flared in her heart, yet so did the caution bred from her family's generational disdain for anything outside their gilded circle. As the last course was served, her father, an imposing figure draped in authority, cleared his throat, his voice rich and commanding. "Charlotte," he began, his gaze heavy, "it's time you consider your future. Someone like Lord Harrington embodies everything that we have worked for." Charlotte's stomach churned, the mention of Lord Harrington evoking images of cold calculations, dictated by wealth, rather than warmth. But she held her tongue, unwilling to betray her true feelings as her mother joined in, her tone laced with assured disdain. "You must understand the importance of preserving our name, darling. A relationship with someone lacking your status is simply not an option." In that moment, the doors swung open, and a sudden rush of air swept through the room, causing Charlotte's heart to lurch in a blend of hope and dread. Daniel appeared, his smile fading the instant he caught sight of the parents who stood as guardians of Charlotte's carefully crafted life, a life he seemed destined to unravel. "Ah, Daniel," her father remarked coolly, the weight of his voice like lead. "We were just discussing Charlotte's future. I trust you see how vital it is for her to choose wisely." The tension in the room rippled like a wave, Charlotte's heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and defiance. "Your future?" Daniel echoed softly, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean by that? Is she merely a pawn in a game of privilege and power?" The words hung, heavy with an unfiltered truth. "Enough!" her mother snapped, the sharpness in her tone cutting through the tension. "You're a beggar, Daniel. You have nothing of value to offer her, or our family. It's absurd that you would even think to approach her at all." Charlotte felt the air leave her lungs, her heart crashing against her ribs as if it were fighting for freedom. She wanted to scream, to defend Daniel against the onslaught of their disdain, but the fear of the consequences held her back. She looked at Daniel, searching for any sign of hope, but found only flashes of hurt in his eyes. "Is this what you think of me?" he asked, the shock evident in his voice, igniting a fire of anger within him. "I am just a gold digger to you? Someone to scoff at while you sip your overpriced wine?" "You don't know me," his voice rang out, making her parents flinch, but in that moment they stood united against him. Charlotte's vision blurred, as tears threatened to spill, a tempest of emotion swirling within her. This was her family, the ones who should love and support her. Yet here they were, cold and judgmental, tearing apart the very fabric of her heart. "Daniel, please," she whispered, her voice cracking as she reached across the table, desperate to bridge the chasm her family had carved. But Daniel took a step back, his expression morphing from confusion to fury. "Don't. You need to see them for who they really are." He turned slowly to face Charlotte, anguish etched across his face. "You think that your love can change things, but they will always see me as beneath you." With those words hanging in the air, he stormed out of the dining room, the sound of the door slamming drowning out her family's hushed whispers. Silence blanketed the table, broken only by her mother's incredulous scoff. Charlotte sat there, trembling, torn between the loyalty bred from a lifetime of expectation and the love that had begun to blossom within her heart. What price would she pay for this rebellion? Could she risk everything for Daniel, when her family loomed over her, ready to dictate her future? Suddenly, Daniel's voice echoed in her mind, full of anger and resolution, a vow that chilled her to the bone. "You will regret this," he had said before leaving, the words seeping into her very being, igniting a certain dread. What would happen next? She glanced at her parents, who exchanged satisfied smirks, features masking their disdain. Gripped by a whirlwind of uncertainty, it dawned on her that this was more than just a family dinner. It was the unraveling of everything she had ever known. What would become of her heart now, torn in two? The answer to that question danced like shadows around her, mingling with the impending storm of her reality. Would love be powerful enough to withstand generations of prejudice? The night had only just begun, leaving her to confront the looming shadows of a future that felt more uncertain than ever. Charlotte paced the marble floors of her family's estate, her heart heavy with guilt that seeped into her thoughts. Like a relentless shadow, the echo of her family's harsh words still reverberated in her mind, each syllable a reminder of the treachery masked by privilege. She knew all too well the cruelty wrapped within their lavish lifestyle, and the multitude of secrets hidden beneath their polished facade. The air was thick with expectation, but it felt suffocatingly false. A world built on the backs of others left behind. As she delved deeper into the murky waters of her family's business dealings, whispers of a mysterious benefactor began to circulate. Rumors spread like wildfire, each tale more audacious than the last, suggesting that someone was cleverly orchestrating disruptions in her family's carefully constructed empire. While Charlotte felt the weight of their sins pressing down upon her, curiosity sparked within. Who was this enigmatic figure hiding in the shadows, and why did they choose to target her family? Amidst this turmoil, her mind often spiraled back to Daniel. The tender moments they shared felt like brief glimpses into a world she longed for, yet lingering doubts crept in with every passing day. Glints of gold and whispers of wealth surfaced around him, bringing forth questions that gnawed at her conscience. Could it be true, what they said? Was Daniel merely playing the part of a beggar? Perhaps a wolf in sheep's clothing? As they shared laughter beneath the stars, doubts transformed her joy into confusion, turning their love into a labyrinth riddled with deception. What if he isn't who he says he is? The thought haunted her. The tenderness in Daniel's eyes could disguise ulterior motives, but the flutter in her chest begged her to believe otherwise. Each day, the dichotomy between love and suspicion grew wider, splintering the fragile trust that nestled in her heart. Was she to take a leap of faith, or cling to the skepticism that her family had imbued in her since childhood? This uncertainty hung like a storm cloud, threatening to drown her newfound joy under the heavy rains of doubt. Then, news arrived. Whispers echoed through the estate about the benefactor who disrupted family affairs. Their identity, as elusive as the wind. Could this person hold the key to unearthing the truth behind her family's transgressions? A spark ignited within her. Perhaps this was the path that might lead to clarity, a way to peel back the layers of deceit her family clung to so fervently. What if, through this chaos, she could discover the origin of the rift threatening her love with Daniel? The tension coiled tightly around her as she found herself sliding deeper into the darkness of her family's affairs. Each piece of information uncovered felt like a betrayal of trust, not only to her family, who had continually turned a blind eye to their moral compass, but to Daniel, whose essence she revered but questioned all the same. Her heart entwined with a myriad of emotions: guilt for wanting to expose her family's deeds, fear of what revealing those truths could mean for Daniel, and hope that through this turmoil, a genuine connection could survive against the odds. She reflected on the fragility of this balancing act, recognizing that the path to uncovering her family's secrets could lead to the ultimate confrontation. Little did she know, this storm was brewing a revelation about Daniel's identity that would challenge everything they both held dear. The clock continued ticking, inching closer to the moment when truths long buried would resurface with a vengeance. Just then, her phone buzzed, the screen illuminating with a message that sent chills down her spine. It was Daniel. "I need to see you. There are things you need to know." Charlotte's breath hitched, each word echoing within her like a harbinger of dark secrets waiting to be unearthed. With her heart racing, She braced herself for the confrontation that lay ahead. This was no longer just about love. It had become a journey into the heart of deception, one that could change their lives forever. As she prepared to meet him, a nagging thought intertwined with her hope. Could love really withstand the storm that threatened to unravel everything? With unresolved tension gripping her heart, she sensed that the moment of truth was fast approaching, one that would echo the sound of 1,000 lives about to collide. Don't miss what lies ahead as Charlotte's loyalty is put to the ultimate test. An emotional confrontation that will challenge the foundation of her love and the betrayals woven into her family's legacy. The tension in the grand estate of Charlotte's family reached its peak that evening, the air thick with unspoken words as shadows stretched across the opulent rooms. The echoes of distant laughter and clinking glasses faded into a background hum, becoming little more than a blur as Charlotte paced anxiously in the lavish library, her heart a tempestuous storm. Tonight was unlike any other. The unmasking awaited her, an unraveling of truths, long cloaked in secrecy. From her perch by the window, she caught glimpses of the moonlight shimmering against the manicured gardens, illuminating the very space where she had shared countless stolen moments with Daniel. Each vivid memory flickered like the dancing light, reminding her of their bond and the love that had blossomed amid the chaos. Yet, a dark shadow loomed over that love. An impending confrontation, a reckoning that could reshape everything. Suddenly, Daniel strode through the door, his expression unreadable yet charged with a raw intensity, the flicker of the candlelight casting defining lines across his features. "Charlotte," he began, his voice low, as though the very walls had ears. "We need to talk. Time I tell you the truth." She felt her breath hitch, uncertainties coiling tightly around her heart. "What do you mean?" "What truth?" The questions tumbled forth, each laced with a mix of hope and dread, clinging to the edges of her consciousness. As he stepped closer, she noticed a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, and suddenly the air felt heavier, more electric with the weight of revelation. "I haven't been entirely honest with you. I'm not just Daniel, the beggar you've fallen for." His jaw tightened as he continued. "I'm also Daniel Good, the chief executive officer of a tech company that's worth billions." The ground seemed to shift beneath Charlotte's feet as disbelief washed over her, crashing against the shores of her understanding. "What?" she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "You've been lying to me this whole time?" The feeling of betrayal pierced her, yet confusion tangled within. Could this be true? Daniel's gaze held hers, unwavering yet pained. "No, Charlotte. I didn't want to deceive you. I came to understand the lives of those my company impacts. Their struggles, their dreams. I thought that by infiltrating the very world I had created, I could see the truth, find out what it meant to genuinely connect with those pushed aside by privilege. You were supposed to be my light in that darkness." Her heart raced as a storm of emotions flooded her mind. The pieces fell chaotically into place. She had believed in their love, the authenticity of their connection, and yet here he was, revealing a facade that shattered that reality. "Did you ever care for me, or was this all just part of your plan?" she challenged, tears pricking the corners of her eyes. "I care for you more than I can express," he replied fervently, desperation evident in the tremor of his voice. "This isn't just about revenge against your family. It's about something much larger. It's about justice for those who are voiceless. For too long, your family has profited off the suffering of others, and it's time for that to end." Charlotte's heart wrestled with the juxtaposition of love and moral integrity, her mind racing with the implications of his words. Could she support Daniel's quest for vengeance against the very family she had lived and loved with for so long? Each of her familial ties felt like chains, threatening to bind her to a life she was desperate to escape. Yet turning her back on them felt like betrayal of a different kind, one that carved deep within her soul. "Daniel," she began, but the intensity of the moment silenced her words momentarily. "Shh," he pressed, his voice a low growl filled with urgency. "You must choose between them and the truth we could create together. Together, we could reshape this flawed system, the legacy of your family. But understand, this may come at an awful cost." Tension crackled in the air as Charlotte fought the rising tide of emotions that pulled her in every direction. that pulled her in every direction. Her loyalty to her family sat at odds with her desire for justice, a fire that burned deeply within her ever since she met him. "But I can't just turn my back on my family," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Would they turn their backs on you?" he asked, his tone heavy with frustration. "What choice have they ever given you? Are you ready to live a life dictated by their expectations? To continue their legacy?" The walls of her world felt as if they were closing in on her, forcing her to confront the truth she had long evaded. Daniel had become more than just a lover. He had awakened a part of her that yearned for change, for freedom, and most importantly, for love, the kind that wouldn't shrink in the shadow of obligation. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the only truth she could cling to. "You're right," she whispered, the words flowing out anchored by anguish. "But this is not only about them. It's also about us. Could our love survive this tempest? Then it's time to make our choice, for better or worse." Daniel's voice echoed with a mixture of firmness and desperation. As tension mounted and uncertainty hung like a dark curtain, Charlotte felt the heart-wrenching weight of her decision bear down on her decision. Would she stand with Daniel, the man who represented everything her family despised, or cling to a legacy that felt increasingly hollow? In that pivotal moment, as the clock ticked away the seconds of her destiny, Charlotte felt the world shift beneath her. Her heart quaked with the reality of impending change, a second of hesitation stretching into an eternity. All the beliefs she had held were just as fragile as the delicate crystal chandelier above them, spinning and swaying precariously. The truth loomed before her. Daniel's plan, her family, love, justice. As their eyes locked, it became clear that the answers to these questions would redefine not only her status and love, but the entirety of her identity. Then it hit like a thunderclap. A shocking twist of fate that would resonate deeply between them. What if their fates were intertwined more than she ever imagined? What unseen connections lay between them in ways that had yet to unfold? As she prepared to answer, the weight of destiny settled heavily on her shoulders. The final choice that could change everything for better or for worse. Would she stand by Daniel, fighting for justice, or retreat back into the confines of expectation? Stay with us as we reveal the cascading ripples of these choices, a journey that weaves love, vengeance, and an unexpected legacy together in ways no one could anticipate. In the heart of the opulent dining room, surrounded by the excessive symbols of their wealth, Charlotte sensed the impending storm brewing. The room was filled with an awkward mix of expensive decor and tension, much like the family legacy weighed heavy on her heart. The polished wooden table gleamed under the power of their privilege, but today she would be the one seizing that power in unprecedented ways. "Do you even hear yourselves?" Charlotte's voice rang out, cutting through the chatter of her family, silencing the polite conversations about tasteless gossip and extravagant plans. All eyes turned to her, disbelief etched across their aristocratic faces. "Do you realize how detached you are from the very world you claim to dominate?" Her father, momentarily taken aback, set his fork down slowly, the sound like a heavy judgment echoing through her. "Charlotte, this is hardly the place for such a conversation," he said, the calm demeanor at odds with the tension radiating from her. "You've always been overly sentimental." Sentimental? She felt a crackling energy surge within her, a fiery rebellion pushing against the walls of expectation that had engulfed her for so long. "You think caring about the world around me is a weakness? It's your privilege that blinds you. Your judgments, your disdain for those beneath you. It's immoral." Gasps harmonized with the crackling silence, her mother's face a portrait of indignation. "You would defend someone of his status?" She spat, the disdain evident in her voice. "Daniel is nothing but a beggar, a symbol of everything that is wrong with society. Associating with him is ludicrous." Charlotte felt her heart race, the pulse of outrage igniting her emotions. "He's not a symbol, he's a person. He understands what it means to struggle, to fight for something real. Unlike you, who hide behind glass doors and tarnished silverware." The words burned boldly on her tongue, cutting deeper than expected. "Enough!" her father's voice thundered, but she pressed on, the fire within her igniting with every thought she brought into view. "You've built this empire on the backs of others, and it makes you no better than the very systems you claim to loathe. You look down on people like Daniel while you continue to profit from their hardship. The hypocrisy is staggering. Charlotte's voice trembled with a mixture of rage and yearning. The silence shattered like glass. Her parents exchanged predatory glances, quick and sharp, their disbelief morphing into something more potent, a sense of betrayal. But Charlotte stood resolute, her heart racing. He embodies everything you refuse to see. I see the man who cares for the overlooked, not just his status in society, she said, looking from one family member to another. I refuse to let you dictate my life based on notions of privilege that are so deeply flawed. As the weight of her words settled in the air, Charlotte felt as if she were standing on shifting ground, trapped between her history and the unknown future. The stakes ignited, revealing cracks in the familial facade she had grown up into. Familiar faces twisted in disappointment. But beneath that facade was a reflection of her liberation. Her mother's face was contorted in anger as she retorted, "A future with him means a loss of everything you've inherited. You'll be lost, Charlotte. Do you really think love can shield you from the consequences of your choices?" A haunting silence engulfed the room. Laden with a tempest of emotions, Charlotte met their glares with resolve, feeling the thrill of rebellion surge through her veins. I won't be lost. I'll finally be found. I'm choosing to embrace a future that matters, one directed by values that can bring change. With a finality that both haunted and liberated her, she laid it bare. I align with Daniel's vision for justice. I will not remain part of a system that thrives on greed and exploitation. I'd rather fight for something real. The emotional resolution washed over her as she stepped into the unknown, reveling in the powerful shift within her. No longer tied to expectations, she stood at the precipice of possibility, her heart racing with the weight of her choice. Charlotte, you can't mean that, her father warned, the disappointment tangible in his expression. But it was too late. As Charlotte turned to walk away, she felt the gravity of their disapproval reach for her, but knew she was simply stepping into a future crafted from purpose, not privilege. This is not just rebellion, it's survival, she called back, her heart thrumming with exhilaration. With the resolution of her choice echoing in her ears, she stepped into the open air, the weight of her family's judgments falling behind her with every step. The thrill of aligning with Daniel flooded her senses, igniting a fierce dedication to justice that was ready to take on everything they would challenge together. The familial betrayal had opened her eyes, and with newfound clarity, she knew the battle for love and to fight the consequences of privilege had only just begun. What remains now? What price would they pay? Stay with us as Charlotte's rebellion molds a comprehensive future, reshaping the lives they live and the entwined path they walk alongside one another. In the aftermath of Charlotte's bold decision to align herself with Daniel, a new chapter unfolded, a tapestry woven from hope, ambition, and the undeniable threads of love that connected them. Together they embarked on a mission to create a foundation that provided opportunities for the less fortunate, a venture that filled Charlotte with a sense of purpose she had never known. As they took their first steps into this uncharted territory, the underlying tension between their growing romantic feelings and their quest for a better world simmered just beneath the surface. In meetings that buzzed with excitement and organization, Charlotte often caught herself stealing glances at Daniel, whose passion for their cause radiated like sunlight on a crisp morning. Each shared laugh, every brushed shoulder felt electric, sparking a warmth that ignited the deepest corners of her heart. Yet, despite this exhilarating new journey, there were shadows lurking close by. Do you think we can really make a difference? Daniel posed during a quiet moment, his brow furrowed with concern as they sat on a sun-drenched bench at their local community center. His question resonated deeply, stirring within Charlotte not only a response, but a confrontation with her own past. I want to believe we can, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Memories of her family's disdain washed over her like an ominous tide, reminding her of the expectations that had once ruled her world. But I have to ask myself, what if we're just exchanging one set of chains for another? Reflecting on her life beneath the weight of privilege, Charlotte started to unravel the layers cloaking her true aspirations. The opulence of her upbringing had endowed her with opportunities, yet it came with a sinister undercurrent. The chains of obligation and the constant fear of judgment. "I've spent so long trying to fit into a mold that wasn't mine," she admitted, her voice trembling with raw honesty. "I need to redefine what my legacy looks like, on my terms." Daniel nodded, the depth of her words resonating with him. He, too, carried the scars of the past, a life marked by struggles that had shaped not just his character, but his vision for a better future. "We can't let our backgrounds define us," he encouraged. "It's how we respond to those challenges that will shape who we become." Yet, as their resolve grew stronger, subtle echoes of Charlotte's past loomed ever larger. It was inevitable. They were bound to disrupt the status quo, and this awakening was not without its potential pitfalls. Pressures from her family drew nearer, their critical voices ever present, like shadows trailing her every step. Would they watch idly as Charlotte ventured down this path of change? Or were they plotting something more sinister to re-establish their control? A moment of clarity washed over Charlotte as she mused on the obstacles ahead. "I can't let the weight of their legacy diminish what we stand for now," she said, her expression hardened with determination. "But if my family catches wind of what we're doing," she trailed off, the implications weighing heavily in the air between them. Daniel took a long breath, absorbing her concern. "We'll face it together, whatever comes." His reassurance enveloped her like a comforting embrace, providing an anchor amidst her swirling doubts. Their partnership was more than just romantic. It symbolized a bridge they were building together, a bridge anchored in resilience, understanding, and a shared vision. And then, at that very moment, the world opened up with endless possibilities. Charlotte could feel the excitement swirling within her, to connect her family name with a true cause that mattered, the kind that could save lives. However, she was aware that every risk had its price. "Things won't be easy, especially if they decide to act against us," she murmured softly, strength fortifying her words. "But we must pave this path regardless of what lies ahead." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting brilliant hues of orange and pink across the sky, they sat side by side, gazing into a future that seemed as promising as it did fraught with danger. With unspoken agreements hanging heavily in the air, both Charlotte and Daniel felt the undeniable weight of their love, mingling with the heavy expectation of change. Just when it felt like the world opened to them, Charlotte sensed that this was merely the beginning of a journey riddled with unforeseen hurdles. "Stay tuned," the voice within her urged, "for the challenges we'll face could shake the very foundation beneath our feet." The emotional stakes were rising, and with them came the intangible thrill of transformation. Together, they prepared to embrace what lay ahead, not only for themselves but for a community that had yearned for the promise of change. With every challenge, they stood poised to confront whatever obstacles awaited, their bond growing stronger while the echoes of their pasts faded, leading into a brighter tomorrow. But as they moved forward, one question remained echoing in the depths of their hearts. Would their relationship withstand the lurking shadows of their pasts, or would they find themselves caught in a battle for their love, one that threatened to unravel everything they had worked so hard to build? The sun dipped low behind the sprawling cityscape, painting the sky in fierce shades of crimson and gold, as Charlotte and Daniel leaned against the brick facade of their newly established community center. The place had become their sanctuary, a space meant for uplifting those who had long been overlooked. Their love had flourished amidst these budding endeavors, yet a palpable tension now hung in the air, an unsettling whisper of the external threats lurking just beyond the doors. "Have you heard the murmurings?" Daniel's voice, usually a source of warmth for Charlotte, carried a weight today that bespoke trouble. He ran a hand through his dark hair, the tension coiling visibly around him. "Some of the local businesses have caught wind of our plans. They are not particularly fond of betrayal." Charlotte's brow furrowed with concern. She felt a quickening pulse. This wasn't just about community. It was about their love being thrust under the scrutiny of a society that upheld privilege above purpose. "What kind of betrayal?" she asked, her heart sinking. "Rival companies see my involvement as competition," he explained, frustration threading through every syllable. They thrive on maintaining the status quo, and a chance for us to revolutionize things puts a target on both of our backs. Charlotte clenched her fists, feeling the fiery urge to protect what they had built. We won't let them intimidate us. We are creating change. We are not just flipping the script on charity. We are redefining what it means to make a difference. Daniel nodded, but uncertainty clouded his gaze. The stakes are higher than we thought. Connections are being made in the shadows. Backdoor deals that could undermine everything. The darkness of his worry settled over them. And there is something from my past that might complicate everything as well. Daniel, she said, her heart racing. What is it? You can't keep things hidden from me. We are in this together. He hesitated, the weight of his past swirling in the air around them like a storm cloud. There is a reason I know the landscape of this industry like the back of my hand. He started, each word laced with hesitation. Before I chose to step into the world of technology, I was more entangled with the game. I had a different identity, working for one of the rivals that may threaten us now. Charlotte's pulse quickened, fear gripping her as his confession unfolded like an unseen threat. You worked for them? But then, that means they already know you. The implication swept over her like a chill. We could be walking into a trap. A flicker of pain crossed Daniel's face, an acknowledgement of the burden he bore. I left that life behind for a reason, to fight the very system I once represented. I wanted to rebuild, not destroy. But there are people out there who won't forget that I was part of it. As they stood together in the waning light, the enormity of their challenge loomed larger than before. Her heart squeezed tightly with the fear of losing, not just their vision, but also Daniel, the man who had come to embody her hope for change. What are we going to do? She asked, a tremor in her voice. We need to keep moving forward, he replied firmly. We need to show them that love and compassion don't crumble under threat. We will gather support, hold community events, and amplify our message. They can't silence us if we stand united. Charlotte inhaled deeply, the fragrance of possibility mingling with the acrid scent of doubt. Then let's do it. We will prove that our bond and our efforts can withstand their pressures. As they plotted their next moves, progress seemed promising at first. Turnout to their events was strong. Support from locals buoyed their spirits, and Charlotte felt the fire of determination surging within her. But just as they gathered momentum, the shadows cast by rivals crept closer, fanning the flames of instability. An ominous note dropped onto her desk during preparations for their upcoming fundraiser. The words leapt out at her. Slander, deceit, and unfit twisted through each line, painting her and Daniel as opportunistic outsiders. It was clear their adversaries had organized, fanning distrust through the community, seeking to uproot the seeds of goodness they had planted. We need a plan to counter this, Charlotte declared, frustration igniting. We can't allow them to redefine who we are. Stand strong, Daniel insisted, his voice steadying her resolve. We will expose the ugliness they thrive on. We know the truth about empathy and the power of change. Underneath that resolve, however, shadows of worry still loomed. Each success they celebrated felt tempered by the looming threat that their enemies would capitalize on any misstep. As the day of the fundraiser approached, Charlotte readied herself under the bright lights, her heart racing with a mingled sense of hope and dread. This was their opportunity to share their vision, to fight against the tide, and to redefine their narrative in the face of adversity. Then, everything tipped on its axis. A revelation crashed into the potency of their efforts. As she prepared to speak, the curtain was drawn back on Daniel's past, releasing a torrent of truths more complex than they could have expected. Charlotte, one of their supporters warned, a grave look settling across their face. I heard whispers about something, about a business deal Daniel was involved in. It is connected to a rival firm. Charlotte's breath caught in her throat as the realization settled in just when they thought they had fortified their resolve. An unanticipated hidden detail shifted dangerously beneath their feet. This revelation threatened everything they had worked for. What would it mean for their love, for their plans, if Daniel's ties to past rivalries came to light? A storm raged within her. This wasn't just about love anymore. It was about trust, integrity, and the very future they sought to carve out together. What will happen next? She thought desperately, determination and fear twisting into a singular focus. She had to get to the bottom of this before everything unraveled. Just when they believed they could outsmart the lurking shadows, a startling secret about Daniel's past threatens to undo everything they have ever built. How will they confront the truth, and what will it mean for their journey? Stay tuned to find out just how deep the web of deception really runs. In the weeks that followed Charlotte's bold choice to stand alongside Daniel, her life began to unfold in ways she had never imagined. Gone were the days of silent compliance. Instead, the vibrant energy of community activism enveloped her, breathing life into her long-buried ambitions. As she attended various events with Daniel, rallies aimed at advocating for social change and awareness for underprivileged communities, Charlotte felt a profound shift within herself. Each gathering served as a canvas, and with every stroke of the brush, she painted a masterpiece of individuality and strength that had long been stifled by her family's expectations. Standing shoulder to shoulder with Daniel, among people whose stories mirrored the struggles she once ignored, Charlotte felt like she had reclaimed a part of herself that had been suppressed for far too long. The laughter, creativity, and unity radiated from every corner, challenging the very norms her family had upheld. She spoke passionately, her voice resonating with a power that once hid beneath layers of privilege. As people connected through shared aspirations and bold dreams, Charlotte experienced a stirring transformation, growing more comfortable in her skin with each passing day. Yet, just as the tides of change surged within her heart, tensions simmered at home. Charlotte's family took notice of her shifting loyalties, their disdain palpable. Each family gathering became an arena of unspoken battles, with sharp glances and cold shoulders replacing warm embraces. Sensing their resistance to her newfound identity only fueled her resentment further. "Charlotte, your association with him is unbecoming," her mother would chide during tense dinners, the once familiar atmosphere now suffocating. "You're losing sight of who you are. You're better than this. A beggar's project? Really, darling?" her father would add with disapproval, his voice draping the table in heavy judgment. "You align yourself with those who have nothing to offer besides their failed dreams. Remember what we've built." With every criticism, Charlotte felt a spark ignite within her, a defiance that pushed back against her family's control. "You don't understand what I'm fighting for," she'd reply, her voice quaking with conviction. "I'm rich in ways you simply can't see." These confrontations carved deep wounds, yet each fight molded Charlotte, giving her the courage to embrace her purpose. She leaned into that empowerment more than ever, reveling in her ability to challenge their outdated notions. The anticipation reached a crescendo when they prepared for the community event meant to showcase their initiatives, a day dedicated to celebrating the people whose voices often went unheard. Charlotte helped plan the program, pouring her heart into ensuring everything represented the community's true spirit. As the big day approached, the combined nerves of excitement and apprehension surged like wild electricity in the air. The sun shone brightly as the event unfolded, a vibrant tapestry of colorful booths, laughter, and music swirling together in harmony. The turnout exceeded their expectations, with families gathering to celebrate progress and hope. In that euphoric energy, Charlotte felt invincible, the triumph of her commitment to Daniel and their shared vision coursing through her veins. Then, in a moment that felt surreal, something extraordinary happened. As Charlotte stepped up to speak, she noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Mrs. Johnson, a fierce advocate from a neighboring community who had always inspired Charlotte with her unwavering commitment to social justice. When their eyes met, Mrs. Johnson raised her hand high, palm open, a gesture that sent ripples of recognition through the crowd. "Charlotte," Johnson called, her voice resonating with conviction. "It takes courage to challenge the chains of privilege. Thank you for standing with us." Applause erupted around her, a wave of support washing over her like a warm embrace. In that moment, the ground felt unsteady beneath her. Yet Charlotte stood firm, her heart pounding in disbelief. The community had rallied behind her, and all at once, she realized they were not just acknowledging her efforts, they were validating her journey towards redefining her identity. As she finished her speech, Charlotte caught Daniel's eye, the pride gleaming in his gaze as he watched her flourish. Their connection anchored her amidst the whirlwind of emotions surging through her, a bond that felt as electric as the atmosphere around them. Word of their initiative spread, and Charlotte recognized that this acknowledgement might tilt the balance in her favor. But lurking in the depths of her mind were the shadows of her family's disapproval, hovering just beyond the joyful celebration. Would this acknowledgement come with a price, and how would her family respond to this embrace of transformation? As the festivities continued, the sense of pride and accomplishment within Charlotte washed over her, but not without a lingering question. If love and justice thrived here today, would tomorrow spell doom for her family ties? With so much at stake, the pivotal moment of celebration had opened a door to uncertainty, one that echoed with the pressures of confrontation. Would she stand resolute, defiant against her family's expectations, or would their discontent extinguish the light that had sparked within her? Only time would reveal the answers as the community stood united, celebrating a moment that felt similarly seismic yet perilous. Stay close, because just when Charlotte believed she could bask in the warmth of acceptance, the storm of familial obligation looms ever larger, threatening to reshape everything she had fought to reclaim. What unexpected ally might appear next? And how will this influence Charlotte's struggle for acceptance? Keep watching to find out. The grand ballroom shimmered under dozens of glittering chandeliers as the illustrious guests twirled across the polished floors, laughter echoing off the marble walls. It was a night of celebration for Charlotte's family, a facade of unity masking the tension that lay just beneath the surface. But amid the opulence, Charlotte stood on the precipice of chaos, feeling the grip of loyalty pull her in two painfully opposing directions. Across the ballroom, Daniel arrived, an undeniable presence in the midst of affluence and expectation. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that highlighted his every feature, but it wasn't the fabric that caught attention. It was the fire ignited within him. He scanned the room, seeking Charlotte, who stood in a corner, flanked by her family, the weight of their ancestral expectations hanging heavily on her shoulders. For far too long, she had lived under the heavy hand of tradition and obligation, but tonight, everything was up for grabs. As the music swelled, Daniel's determination crystallized. A chilling sensation crept up her spine as he approached, eyes blazing with purpose. This confrontation was inevitable, and they all sensed it. Charlotte's heart raced. She had known Daniel could be assertive, yet here, in the heart of her family's privilege, the stakes escalated. "May I have your attention?" Daniel's voice cut through the crowd, drawing every eye toward him, including Charlotte's parents'. The room fell silent, eyes wide and curious as whispers brushed among guests. This was not a usual guest stepping into the limelight. "Daniel, this is hardly the time," Charlotte cautioned, anxiety rippling through her, but her plea was drowned as he continued, the fervor in his voice igniting the air around them. "I stand here tonight not just as Charlotte's friend, but as someone who has borne witness to the destructive legacy your family has cultivated." The words hung heavy, dripping with conviction. "For too long you've cloaked yourselves in wealth and power, blind to the suffering your empire inflicts on others." Gasps rippled through the crowd, the tension thickening palpably. Charlotte's parents exchanged narrowed glances, their expressions a mixture of rage and disbelief. "How dare you?" her father sputtered, the disbelief in his voice overshadowed by a simmering threat. "Do you think you can walk into our home and dictate terms like some fool? You are nothing." Charlotte's heart raced as she stepped forward, her voice steadying as she found her own footing. "He speaks the truth," she declared, every eye snapping toward her in shocked silence. "Our family's history is steeped in privilege, but that doesn't mean we have to perpetuate it. We have a choice. Your choice will ruin you," her mother shot back, the sharpness of her tone cutting through the consternation in the room. "You play with fire, Charlotte. You think siding with beggars will elevate your status?" But Daniel stood tall, unwavering. "It's time to face the uncomfortable truths wrapped in your wealth. Your choices affect countless lives. I am here because I will not let your past dictate our future." The dance floor felt like a battleground, her family holding steadfast to their legacy, while Charlotte and Daniel embodied a spark of revolution. Tension crackled in the air, emotions surged, reflecting the rift forming between them. "Who do you think you are?" her father challenged, words dripping with disdain. "A man who only just scraped through life, daring to lecture us about morality? You should know your place." Daniel's jaw tightened, a tumultuous sea of emotions battling within him. "Who I am is irrelevant," he shot back, his voice now a low, potent growl. "What matters is fighting for the truth. And for love. Something I see in Charlotte, something your privilege has stripped away. She deserves more than the gilded cage you've wrapped around her." Now it was Charlotte's turn to confront her past. This isn't just about wealth. It's exposing the hypocrisy that comes with it. "I can no longer choose comfort over authenticity. I won't let fear dictate my life." Her heart pounded with a fierce resolve, each word a step further into her own power. But as the crowd watched, a mixture of awe and apprehension washed over them. The grand host, once a bedrock of privilege, beckoned her to choose. "Choose now, Charlotte. Whose side are you on?" The stakes crystallized before her, a demand that felt as heavy as a pendulum poised to swing, shaping destinies. Daniel's gaze bore into hers, unwavering yet vulnerable, lending her the courage she needed. "This is your moment," he murmured, a shield of intimacy wrapping around their tension, even amidst chaos. Deep down, Charlotte felt it, an anchor of clarity rising against the roaring waves of doubt. It was no longer a question of love or loyalty, but of integrity, of aligning herself with who she knew she truly was amidst the tumult of expectation. As murmurs echoed around them, Charlotte inhaled deeply, eyes darting between the faces that had shaped her life, each carrying the weight of her upbringing. "I stand with love, with truth, and with Daniel," she declared, a quiet strength filling her voice. "I challenge the chains that bind us all." A collective gasp erupted, and a silence so profound enveloped the ballroom that even the music seemed to fade into nothingness. Tension rippled through the air, igniting a mixture of defiance and discomfort, leaving Charlotte suspended in a moment that felt simultaneously freeing yet perilous. Out in the wings, uncertainty brewed. A new alliance had formed, but it came at a cost that neither she nor Daniel could comprehend fully. As the crowd processed her words, one question reverberated loudly through the air. What would be the price of her declaration for love and justice? With those profound words hanging in the air, Charlotte's heart raced, teetering on the edge of both excitement and anxiety. Would this confrontation lead to liberation or calamity? As the stakes elevated, she felt the ground shift beneath her, an impending storm brewing that promised to change everything. Stay tuned as they navigate this tumultuous chapter, forced to confront the consequences of their choices amidst rising tides of anger and unexpected alliances that threatened to redefine their world forever. As the echoes of her declaration hung suspended in the grand ballroom, Charlotte felt the weight of years spent shackled by privilege and expectation lift from her shoulders. This pivotal moment, a bold stand for love and justice, had unraveled the chains that had tethered her to a life not of her choosing. With hearts pounding and the crowd holding its breath, Charlotte turned away from her family, their outrage still palpable, and took her first step toward a life she envisioned with Daniel. The realization washed over her like a bomb, igniting a surge of empowerment coursing through her veins. "I'm done," she whispered to herself, her voice steady though her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Done living in a gilded cage. Each stride away felt as if she were shedding her old self, layers of facade dissolving into the marble floors, her family's expectations evaporating with every daring escape into the unknown. As she navigated through the throng of startled guests, conversations sparked and flickered around her. The ominous whispers attested to the turmoil she had just ignited, but Charlotte felt nothing but exhilaration propelling her forward. Every step surged with defiance, sending ripples through her family's legacy. A legacy she had finally chosen to challenge, a legacy she determined would not define her future. The air outside greeted her with a soft breeze, a welcome reprieve from the suffocating shadows inside. In that moment of solitude, as she faced the night sky shimmering with stars, Charlotte felt a sense of clarity blanket her heart. It was time for a new journey, one woven intricately with the threads of passion, justice, and love. She took a deep breath, centering herself, ready to confront whatever awaited her ahead. Just as the exhilaration of her resolution settled, she spotted Daniel at the far end of the courtyard, his expression unmistakably fierce yet vulnerable. The familiarity of his gaze drew her in, and before she could think twice, Charlotte rushed toward him, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Daniel!" she called out, weaving through clusters of guests, all still buzzing from the previous confrontation. He turned to face her, his initial look of confusion quickly transforming into warmth as their eyes locked. As she reached him, a torrent of emotions welled up within her. "I chose," she breathed, the weight of their trials so palpable between them. Charlotte saw the flicker of surprise in his eyes, quickly overshadowed by a rising pride that ignited the air around them. "You stood up to them," he replied softly, inching closer until all the chaos around them faded into a soft hum. "I knew you would." Her heart soared at his words. The bond they had forged amidst the rain of adversity felt unbreakable now. "I couldn't stay silent any longer," she admitted, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've shown me the power of change, Daniel. It was time I embraced my own." The vulnerability in her words echoed her tumultuous journey, revealing every shadow and every light they shared. For a moment they stood together, the noise of the ballroom merging into the background, enveloped in a cocoon of understanding and love. Unspoken fears and doubts melted away. Every uncertainty now held meaning and depth. "We'll figure this out together," Daniel vowed, wrapping an arm around her, grounding her as they embraced their shared purpose. "We can build something incredible, something that honors our truths." Charlotte smiled through the swirl of emotions, feeling the bonds of connection strengthen as they inhaled the possibilities of a new chapter together. "Yes, but we'll do it on our terms this time. Our love will redefine everything." With hearts synchronized, they stood resolute against the storm that threatened to engulf them, continuing to defy the very norms that had sought to limit them. The promise of love and justice wrapped around them like a cloak as they prepared to face the challenges ahead together. Within that delicate moment, among whispered words of reassurance and tentative embraces, Charlotte felt a sinew of determination tighten around her heart. She envisioned the foundation they would create, one that would empower those who found themselves struggling against the very obstacles she had now dared to confront. As the dust settled, Charlotte couldn't shake the lingering questions about the road ahead. The world stretched before them, tantalizing and uncertain. "What lies on the horizon for us?" she wondered, anticipation and resolve thundering in her chest. "Ready for the adventure?" Daniel asked, mischief dancing in his eyes. With a resolute nod, they turned together, stepping into the unknown, leaving the echoes of the past behind. The thrill of new beginnings pulsed beneath the surface, and Charlotte felt her heart quicken, not just at the prospect of love, but the prospect of driving meaningful change within a world that so desperately needed it. Stay close, dear viewers. The next chapter beckons, with each heartbeat echoing the promise of transformation, forging ahead into the realm of love and justice. What challenges await this dynamic duo, and what stories shall emerge from their unyielding spirit? In the heart of the community center, the air was thick with anticipation as Charlotte and Daniel prepared to unveil their vision, a charitable foundation dedicated to empowering the underprivileged. It felt surreal, a culmination of their dreams taking flight amid the laughter and warmth radiating through the colorful hall. The space buzzed with eager faces, each one a testament to the lives they aimed to uplift. As they stood side by side on the makeshift stage, Charlotte felt a rush of nostalgia wash over her. Just months ago, she had been caught in the suffocating web of privilege and expectation, feeling isolated and trapped. Now, here she stood, ready to share a transformative journey born from rebellion and love. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Daniel began, his voice steady yet filled with an electric passion. "We are excited to announce the launch of our foundation, the Heart of Change." The name sparked murmurs of curiosity throughout the room, the name itself symbolizing a movement eager to challenge societal structures. Charlotte took a deep breath, glancing at the sea of hopeful faces before her. "This isn't just a foundation," she added, her voice radiating warmth. "It's a commitment to challenge the very norms we've been raised under, an opportunity to create a community where everyone has access to not only survival, but also opportunity. This is about empowerment, about rewriting the stories that society often overlooks." With each word they spoke, Charlotte reflected on the past, the mistakes that had shaped their journey together. There had been times when doubts and fears nearly severed their bond, moments when she had questioned the very foundation they were now building upon. but the lessons learned had forged an unbreakable bond between them. She smiled at Daniel, recalling his resilience, how he had faced the shadows of his past head-on, turning every challenge into a stepping stone. "We stand here today not just as a couple in love, but as a team forged through fire," Charlotte continued, vulnerability threading through her words. "We have learned that wealth isn't simply measured by money and possessions. It's defined by the impact we can create. True wealth lies in love, shared experiences, and the ability to uplift others." The nods and murmurs of agreement echoed back at her, each affirmation energizing their shared resolve. The crowd erupted in applause, supportive spirits intertwining with the warmth of their dreams. The earth-shattering realization of how far they had come enveloped Charlotte, a journey that had transformed them profoundly. Yet, alongside that pride lingered a poignant awareness, a reminder of the pain and the sacrifices made in pursuit of authenticity. As the evening progressed, they shared stories about those they aimed to help. Real people with real challenges. Each tale unveiled heartbreaking truths and the relentless spirit of the human condition, underscoring the societal structures they sought to dismantle. "We can create a world where barriers are broken," Daniel emphasized, echoing the very ethos of the foundation they dreamed of together. "Every life matters, and every story has the potential to ignite change." But even amongst the celebration, a question hung heavy, a shadow cast not by doubt, but by the awareness of the costs associated with this mission. As they confronted the often harsh realities of the lives they intended to improve, Charlotte realized the complexity of their intention. What will be the cost of change? She mused silently, understanding that transformation often demanded sacrifice and commitment, not just from them, but from an entire community. The event culminated in heartfelt speeches and stories that instilled hope. But Charlotte and Daniel harbored deeper stories beneath the surface, tales waiting for their moment to rise. As they stood hand in hand, looking out at those whose lives they hoped to touch, they savored the realization that their journey was an ongoing narrative. While the applause carried their dreams into the night, Charlotte felt an exhilarating rush of certainty sweep over her. "This is only the beginning," she whispered to Daniel, the truth resonating within her. Each heart in the room held untold stories, un-African voices, waiting to be uncovered and shared. Love, in its purest form, had indeed risen from the ashes of adversity, propelling them into a new chapter, rich with possibilities. This moment marked a transformation, an invitation for others to join in the journey of love, growth, and empowerment, a journey that would echo on far beyond this one evening. As the final chords of music faded and the last echoes of laughter wove into the fabric of the night, Charlotte turned to the audience, eyes alight with passion. "Stay connected with us," she implored, her voice steady, yet laced with anticipation. "There are countless stories waiting to emerge, and together we will find them." Daniel squeezed her hand, the silent message clear. They were united in purpose, ready to confront the tides of change, passion driving their pursuits. "Love rises from the ashes of adversity," Charlotte concluded, her voice resonating with unwavering strength. "And this is only the beginning of our journey." As they stepped down from the stage, hand in hand, the spirit of possibility shimmered brightly around them. They understood one thing with profound certainty: the story of love, resilience, and transformation would continue to unfold, inviting all to ponder the implications of their shared journey, a journey that beckoned them ever onward into the horizon of the unknown. And with that, their saga began anew, echoing with the promise of change and the unending pursuit of love's potential against the odds.